प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं यं गुरुं हि स्वयं सत्यः प्रज्ञाभक्तिविनीतयः दीप्तिश्चापि भृताः सत्यं तं गुरुं प्रणमाम्यहम् सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. We start from verse 30. एको निष्कम्पात्मा प्रचलति मनसा भावमानी तिष्ठन्नग्रेथ पश्चात् न हि तमनुगतं जानते चक्षुराद्याः यद्वत्पाथस्तरङ्गैः प्रचलति परितः धावमानैस्तदन्तः प्राक्पश्चादस्ति तेषाम् पवनसमुदितैः तैः प्रशान्तैर्यथावत् एकाक्यासीत् स पूर्वम् मृगयति विषयान् आनुपूर्व्यान्तरात्मा जायामे स्यात् प्रजा वा धनमुपकरणम् कर्म कुर्वंस्तदर्थम् क्लेशैः प्राणावशेषैः महदपि मनुते नान्यदस्माद्गरीयः त्वेकाः नाभेऽप्यकृत्स्नः मृतैव विरमत्येकहान्याकृतार्थः नासीत् पूर्वम् न पश्चात् अतनुदिनकराच्छादको वारिवाहः दृश्यः किम् त्वन्तरासौ स्थगयति सदृशम् पश्यतो नार्कबिम्बम् नो चेदेवम् विनार्कम् जलधरपटलम् भासते तर्हि कस्मात् तद्वद्विश्वम् पिधत्ते दृशमथ न परम् भासकम् चालकम् स्वम् भुञ्जानस्वप्नराज्यम् ससकलविभवः जागरम् प्राप्य भूपः राज्यभ्रष्टोऽहमित्थम् न भजति विषमम् तन्मृषा मन्यमानः स्वप्ने कुर्वन्न गम्यागमनमुखमुखम् तेन न प्रत्यवायी तद्वज्जाग्रद्दशायाम् व्यवहृतिमखिलाम् स्वप्नवद्विस्मरेच्चेत् स्वप्नावस्थानुभूतम् शुभमथ विषमम् तन्मृषा जागरे स्यात् जाग्रत्याम् स्थूलदेहव्यवहृति विषयम् तन्मृषा स्वप्नकाले इत्थम् मिथ्यात्वसिद्धौ अनिशमुभयथा सज्जते तत्र मूढः सत्ये तद्भासकेऽस्मिन् अहः कुतैदम् तन्न विद्मो वयम् हि. See, there were a couple of questions towards the end of last class, and one or two were also sent by email. The question is primarily based on mithya. So what is mithya? In fact, we repeatedly hear the word mithya in the context of studying Vedanta. In fact, there are texts which say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha is one version somewhere. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithye Tyevam Rupo Vinishchayaha Soyam Nityanitya Vastu Vivekaha Parikirtitaha Soyam Nityanitya Vastu Vivekaha Samudahritaha. So this is what Viveka Chudamani says. Now if you look at the usage in Viveka Chudamani in the context of describing Nityanitya Vastu Viveka, the Acharya says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithye Tyevam Rupo Vinishchayaha Soyam Nityanitya Vastu Vivekaha Samudahritaha. So this Nitya and Anitya, he is trying to connect with Brahma and Jagat. So this should be kept in mind very clearly. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithye Tyevam Rupaha Vinishchayaha. Vinishchayaha is Visheshato Nishchayaha. In fact, Vinishchaya, whenever they use in technical literature, particularly technical texts, they will say Apramanya Jnana Anaskanditam. Apramanya Jnana Anaskanditam Jnanam. You understand? Jnanam can be there, but it can be shaky, it can be firmly established. So when it is shaky, it means you do not have a firm base on which you are able to substantiate your stand. So this is all it means. So which means you are in need of a certain pramana by which you will be able to say that this is what is to be understood. So if that is not there, so pramanya jnana anaskanditam, apramanya jnana anaskanditam jnanam means that. So that is how, technically you define nishchaya. Anyway, so here in the context of explaining what is nityanitya vastu viveka, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithyetyevam Rupo Vinishchayaha Soyam Nityanitya Vastu Vivekas Samudahritaha. So this is what people have stated. Okay, Samudahritaha Samyak Udahritaha Budhaihi. So in the tradition, this is what has been stated. From this, what do we understand? We understand it as Anitya. So Satyam means Nityam. So Mithya means Anityam. So Anityam immediately implies that it is unreal. It does not mean non-existence. So what we need to understand is Vedanta does not negate the universe. Jagan Mithya, when it says, so in the form that you observe, it is not Nitya. Nityam means Trikala Abadhyam. So in that sense, you can just take Anitya to be Trikala Badhyam. So it will not remain as it is. So this is how you can just take. From a different viewpoint, so you can understand this Mithya to be any entity whose existence depends upon some other entity. Okay? So then also you can call it as a Mithya. Okay? Obviously, it is Anitya. It will boil down to, amount to. So suppose I say the existence of this fabric owes its existence to the threads which have been intertwined here. So with reference to those threads from which this fabric has been created, so this fabric is Mithya. Okay? So with reference to the cotton from which the fabric was, so the thread was generated, so the fabric is Mithya. So with reference to the cotton, you can go on and finally it will end up with one entity. So all these things are Mithya. Okay, so this is how one has to understand the term mithya. But then I was trying to find out if we can figure out this meaning itself from dhatu. So this mithya shabdaha, can we find out its meaning? Because in the previous verse, itham mithyatva siddhau. Okay? So mithyatva siddhau. So once this mithyatvam is established, so that is how it proceeds. So this mithyatva siddhau, so in that context, I was trying to figure out the word mithya, how it is etymologically derived. So there is a dhatu which is myth. Myth. From myth, they use a suffix kyap. Okay. So this myth dhatu has two meanings. Medha himsanayo. So this is what they say. Myth medha himsanayo. Okay. So now I was thinking, how do we get the meaning of Jagan Mithya from this? So we say the entire Jagat which is tangible to you. So there is also a certain misunderstanding among many that Vedanta dismisses with Jagat kind of a thing. So this is completely meaningless. In fact, the most important statements in Vedanta depend on seeing a Jagat in front of you. Otherwise these statements cannot even be understood. So whether it is Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, or if you want to say even the most famous mantra, Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam. So Idam Sarvam, the word refers to some entity which you see. So therefore, it doesn't talk of world negation. It doesn't talk of the absence of world. Okay. So this has to be first of all kept in mind very clearly. Okay. So now we have to understand the word mithya. Okay, Jagan Mithya. So from the word myth, rather root, so the meaning is Medha Himsam. So Medha, if you just understand, so earlier somewhere I think we had this occasion to understand what this Medha is. Generally it is defined as Dhir Dharanavati Medha. Dhir Dharanavati Medha. This is what they say. Now this suffix kyap is used in the sense of karmartha. Okay. So karmartha means, so that becomes the object of your medha. So this entire Jagat is what is essentially the object of our medha. So dhir dharanavati medha, when you say, so what is seen is what is generally running in your mind. So the various events that are happening, the various people that we encountered, the various conversations that took place, so all of them comes under Jagat. So this is, so kyap pratyaya, so with that you can get this word mithya. Even if you want to take himsanam, so we just now told that mithya can be understood as something which is anityam, which is not permanent. Now the word himsanam refers to something which is hurt, something which is destroyed kind of a thing. So this Jagat is anitya. So himsana karma means it is sort of continuously changing, even in that sense. So himsanam, so from that himsanam also, that which is destroyed. So in that sense, you can understand even with karma. So karmarthe kya pratyaya you can do. I was thinking little further whether we can get some other meaning out of it. So from himsanam itself. Generally what happens is, so whenever you take events that are happening and the verbal transaction that took place so seriously, then you are the person who are hurt. Things are there as it is. So then if you can use the suffix kyap in karanartha, so then the jagat becomes himsana karana for you. Okay? So it just happens that since there are people who want to further study this Vyakaranam seriously, so further you can just say that there is another sutra. This is a pratyaya. Pratyayas are broadly classified, the suffixes, into various categories by Panini. This falls under what is known as kritya pratyaya. So it occurs in the third adhyaya. So there are a few pratyayas, maybe say 8-10 pratyayas are maybe there, or slightly less than that. So this kritya pratyayas, so this kyap falls under kritya pratyaya. Panini has also given a sutra, Krityalyuto Bahulam. There is a sutra. So this Krityalyuto Bahulam gives us the license to use this in other senses also, rather than confining it to Bhavartha and Adhikaranartha. Okay? So therefore Daniyo Vipraha is an example. See? So Aniya Pratyaya, you don't take it in Karmani. So Vipraha, so he is a Brahman. Okay? So highly pious Brahman who has studied. Daniyaha means he deserves our dana. So then it is coming in Sampradanartha. So not in the Karmartha. So otherwise Karmartha means it should refer to the entity which you give. So Daniyo Vipraha, when you use it to refer to that person to whom it has to reach. So this Aniya Pratyaya is, so it is based on Krityalyuto Bahula. So in that sense, now come to Mithya. So this Kya Pratyaya, so you can use in Karanartha. So you can, then what happens is, it is because of this person is, so when you leave this Jagat and only see Brahman, you will be Purnananda Swarupa. Okay, Sarvam Brahmamayam. So all of you will be listening to that beautiful rendering soon from Aradhana. Okay, so now Mithya is understood. Now let us come back to this verse. He says, Itham Mithyatva Siddhau. The other question is, so since it is Mithya, so Jagan Mithya, so why would anybody take anything seriously? So why should I engage seriously with anything? So these are other things. After all, okay, chalta hai, attitude can be had. So that is not what is being taught by Vedanta. Okay. So whether it is Nitya or Anitya, okay. So when you deal with things, so you should know it is Anitya and then appropriately deal with. So even when we deal with, so we just consider, see the Shabda, see the unfortunate thing is, absolutely Anitya is lodged permanently as Anitya. So somebody has scolded you, assume. Okay, Shabda has gone. Shabda has gone. So I suppose for no reason he has abused you. For no reason he has done. In fact, recently, I am just saying this because it just came to my mind. See, I am in some committee in some academy, science academy. One person said, okay, he is occupying some position in that academy, some vice president. So this president told me this, and therefore I feel like not stepping into the academy anymore. I said, this could be out of some misunderstanding, somebody has said something, why don't you take it that way? No, that is not possible. So this Shabda, which is totally Anitya, has lodged in his mind, and 2 times I had conversation with him for about 10-15 minutes. And third time, at least to some extent, he was brought into the board for completing what he was supposed to complete. Why I am saying this is, so this can be visualized in various ways. Somebody has misinformed him, therefore he has said this. Otherwise, Vedanta tells you, okay, this is, you can call it as a Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means you clearly understand So what could be the basis for this? This could be the basis, so dismiss it away. If there is truth, you have to correct yourself. If there is no truth, just dismiss. Otherwise, you can resort to karma yoga. So this karma yoga, in the sense, it is out of my own karma, so I am experiencing this. Okay? So then also you should just set it away. Okay? Otherwise, like my great-great-grandmother, so go to Bhagavan and then say, just leave it. Okay? So any which way, this anitya has to be dismissed off which is bothering you. That we don't do. So that is what is being taught. So when we come to the swapnavastha, even treat jagradavastha like this. So this vismaranam, even if we just take as vismaranam, okay? So what is vismaranam, etc. we will see little more detail, because people were asking about this vismaranam. So this, this gives you a certain perspective, okay? This gives you a certain perspective. So that is what is basically this mithya shabda is all about, okay? So now let us read the next verse. So jivantam jagratiha.
Jivantam jagratiha. Jivantam jagratiha.
Svajanamathamritam.
Svajanamathamritam. Svajanamathamritam.
Swapnakale nirikshya.
Swapnakale nirikshya. Swapnakale nirikshya.
Nirvedam yatyakasmat.
Nirvedam yatyakasmat. Nirvedam yatyakasmat.
Mritam amritamamum.
Mritam amritamamum. Mritam amritamamum.
Vikshya harsham prayati.
Vikshya harsham prayati. Vikshya harsham prayati.
Smritvapyetasya jantoho.
Smritvapyetasya jantoho. Smritvapyetasya jantoho.
Nidhanamasuyutim.
Nidhanamasuyutim. Nidhanamasuyutim.
Bhashate tena sakam.
Bhashate tena sakam. Bhashate tena sakam.
Satyevam bhati bhuyaha. Satyevam bhati bhuyaha.
Satyevam bhati bhuyaha. Satyevam bhati bhuyaha.
Alpakasamayavashat.
Alpakasamayavashat. Alpakasamayavashat.
Satyatava mrishatvam.
Satyatava mrishatvam. Satyatava mrishatvam.
So the last quarter, so you can't give a yati bhanga at 7th syllable. There will be one more added. Therefore, you have to say to Satyevam bhati bhuyo pakasamayavashat.
Satyevam
Bhati bhuyo pakasamayavashat. Satyevam bhati bhuyo pakasamayavashat. Satyatava mrishatvam.
Satyatava mrishatvam. Satyatava mrishatvam.
जीवंतम जागृति है. So jagrati refers to in the jagrada avastha. Okay? So in the jagrada avastha. The jagrati can have other meanings also, but here just take in the jagrada avastha. Jivantam means the one who is living. Jivan, jivantau, jivantaha, jivantam. So the person who is living. Jagrati jivantam. Okay. The one who is known to be living for you in the Jagrada Avastha. Swajanam, someone who is close to you, related to you. Atha, so then when he goes into the Swapna Avastha, Mritam, so he seems to be dead. Okay. So this person who is close to him, who is alive in the Jagrada Avastha. So So when he went into the dream state, he saw him to be dead. Okay. So jivantam jagrati. So he has swapna kale. So this person, he has jagrati, whichever way you want to. So this person is observed to be dead by him. Okay, he was seen to be dead. So what is the reaction? Nirikshya, having seen him, nirvedam yatyakasmat. Akasmat nirvedam yati. So nirveda is sorrow. Okay. So he undergoes deep sorrow. Nirvedam yatyakasmat. Why does Acharya use the word akasmat? So akasmat is basically na kasmat. So na kasmat means there is no basis for this. Okay. So akasmat, it is just like this. The other day I was sharing. The bag is under my head. I thought somebody has stolen the bag and I was screaming in the train. Right? So nirvedam yatyakasmat, it just happens. Nirvedam yatyakasmat, for no reason. And this akasmat is basically aluk samasa. Okay. So nakasmadapi hetoho. So that is how, one can understand. Yatyakasmat. This akasmat. This akasmat, there is a very interesting usage. So we had that verse, no? What is it? There is a nice verse. It is good to understand that. Okay, it just came to my mind. So in Ramayana, we have a very beautiful usage as akasmat. Okay, so this is good to learn. I'll tell you. Asankalpitameveha.
Asankalpitameveha. Asankalpitameveha.
Yadakasmat pravartate.
Yadakasmat pravartate. Yadakasmat pravartate.
Nivartyarambhamarabdham.
Nivartyarambhamarabdham. Nivatyarambhamarabdham.
Nanudevasya karmatat.
Nanudevasya karmatat. Nanudevasya karmatat.
There is a beautiful philosophy in this. So that is why you should learn this since it came to my mind. See, what is being defined in this verse is Daivam. We always say Daivam, Daivam. So Daivam. Okay. In fact, there is a beautiful usage in one of the dramas. So there is a conversation between Ashwathama and Karna. I think it is in Karna Bhasa's Nataka. So there, this Daivam is being used beautifully by Karna. So this Ashwathama tells, see, after all you are a charioteer. Okay? Or charioteer's son, whatever it is, Sutaputra. Okay? So Sutaputra, you are a Sutaputra. So you are much inferior to me. So there is no point in talking to you. Something like that the conversation goes. Then Karna says, Sutova Sutaputrova Yovakova Bhavamyaham Daivayattam Kule Janma Madayattantu Paurusham. He says, you have to understand the word Daivam very clearly. See, this is a lot of confusion. This is Sutova Sutaputrova. So Karna says, see, whether I am a Suta or Sutaputra, doesn't matter. Now we are talking about the Velar. So are you equal to me or are you not equal to me? So do we talk about Sutaputra or do we talk about the Velar here? Yova Kova, doesn't matter whoever I am. Yova Kova Bhavamyaham. Okay, there he says Daivayattam Kule Janma. So Daivayattam means the choice of the birth is not in your hands. Kule Janma, where you are going to be born, is not something in your hands. Okay, but the valor that I have acquired, the power that I have acquired, the skills that I have acquired, so this is in my hands. Madayattantu Paurusham. So let us talk about that. and not about Janma. It's a very interesting statement. Now, what is to be understood here is Daivayattam. So, Daivayattam, always Daiva refers to some power over which you have absolutely no clue whatsoever. Okay? So, Daivam, that is why even Bhagavad Gita, I think somewhere it is coming, Adhishthanam tatha karta karanancha prithagvidham vividhascha prithak cheshtaha daivanchaiva atra panchamam. So among the various factors that contribute for the outcome of a result, Daivam is one more factor that has been included by Bhagavad Gita. That is something which most of us forget. And having forgotten, we keep lamenting. So this is a problem. Anyway, so this Daivam, how is it defined? Let us come back to this Ramayana verse. So there it said, Asankalpitameveha yad akasmat pravartate. See, Asankalpitam means it is not something which you thought about. Akasmat means you have absolutely no clue as to which factor came into influence. In fact, let me tell you one interesting episode which happened to me. See, there was, several years ago. Okay. So, 12 years ago, whatever, something, 12, 15 years ago. So, in the process of promotion, so you have to just show that I have done this, all this pratapa has to be done. Over and above the pratapa, so you have to give names of a couple of people whom the committee can contact or the administration can contact. So I gave the name of a couple of people. They were very good to me. So apparently somebody later told me, that the head of the department secretly told me, that one person has, very, very strongly recommended you, praising you sky high. Whereas the other person has just demolished everything. So he said. Then I said, I don't expect this. Because he has been so nice to me, he has been recommending for various things. I don't know. So the akasmat, so that is the only reason. And later, when I talked to him, so not in this context, after several months, in some other occasion, he himself called me and then said, Ram, I need this favor from you, that favor from you. And he wanted one of these Padma awards, in fact. He said, why don't you recommend me? I said, who am I to recommend? You are so senior. No, you have certain position in the field. So all that he says. But when it came to recommending something, somehow, some thought came. This is what you call Daivam. So you don't need to actually hate that person just because he wrote that way. At that point of time, I think something came to his mind, that is all. So that is how you have to just leave it. Asankalpitamevehe. You never thought that he will do this. Akasmat pravartate. For no reason he has dismissed. No. The committee was so, I think, wise. So that they said, see, this should be, there was no point for which he has said, he has done some good thing. So therefore they decided there is some other thing which has gone wrong. See, if there are some 15 points, so at least you say, this is okay, that is not okay. Something you have to say, no. The entire thing has been negative. That is what he said. So then the committee decided, no, this is something totally wrong. And therefore, we need not rely on his report. So what I am saying is, this Kaikeyi's action is also like that. Akasmat pravartate. So one who was so dear to Rama. So this is what akasmat means. Yad akasmat pravartate nivartyarambhamarabdham. So you have set into some action. And that does not fructify. So you face with some undesirable outcomes. See, arambham arabdham. So arambha here, arabhyate ityarambha. You have to understand. So arabhyate ityarambha means karyam. That which is begun, that which is set forth. Okay. Nivartya arambham arabdham. So that which has already commenced. So you set into some activity. And that does not yield the expected outcome. So then you have to understand that this is Daivasya karma. Nanu Daivasya karma tat. So similarly here, so this living person, Why does he think to be dead in the sleep dream? Akasmat pravartate. You don't know the cause. So this is how we need to understand certain events in our life. So the problem here is, if you do not have this understanding, you always develop some hatred towards other person. So that is what the philosophy teaches us. So yad akasmat pravartate nivartyarambhamarabdham nanu daivasya karma. In fact, Bhagavad Pada elsewhere, see what is daivam? He says yat sukrutam. Understand? So even this akasmat, that you are not able to figure out the cause for it, doesn't mean that there is no cause. Okay, some cause that may be real, may not be real, but there is definitely some cause. Something should have gone in his mind while filling the report. So there are various factors. So that is what we need to understand. Okay, nivartyarambhamarabdham nanu daivasya karma. Similarly, here you see a living person to be a dead person, and you start lamenting. So that is what Jivantam jagrati hai svajanamatha mritam swapnakale nirikshya nirvedam yatyakasmat. So this is one aspect. The other aspect of this dream, he says, mritam amritamamam vikshya harsham prayati. It is the other way around. So the swapna is also possible to project. Okay, a dead person to be a person who is alive. Okay, mritam amritam amum vikshya harsham prayati. So he becomes joyous. Okay, harsham prayati. Then Acharya goes one more step further. He says, smritvapyetasya jantoho smritvapyetasya jantoho nidhanam asuyutim bhashate tena sakam. Smritvapi etasya jantoho you can take as the person whom he saw as alive who is actually dead. See, the one who is dead in the Jagrata Avastha, but you saw that fellow to be alive. Okay? Smritva. Smritva means, is a very interesting usage. Okay, let me tell you what the Smaranam, how is it technically defined. In fact, if you look at this Nyaya text, so simple Tarka Sangraha, so it starts with Jnanam Buddhi. Sarva Vyavahara Hetuhu Buddhihi Jnanam. So this is the definition. What is Jnana? So that which is responsible for all kinds of activities with which you engage. Whatever be the sphere of activity. So Jnana. Okay. Sarva Vyavahara Hetuhu, the cause for it. Buddhihi Jnanam. Then he says Smritihi Anubhavascha. It is of two types. Smritihi Anubhavaha. So what is Smritihi? That is same as Smaranam. See, Samskaramatrajanyam Jnanam Smritihi. It has to be nicely understood. So otherwise there will be confusion. See, Samskaramatrajanyam Jnanam Smritihi. So Smritihi means recollection. So something like that. Remembrance, recollection. Samskaramatrajanyam means, so it has to be generated in your mind only based on the impression that has already gone in based on perception. You understand? So smritihi means recollection. How, when you say recollect? Unless you have already collected, you can't recollect, right? So you have collected some signals, they got registered in the mind, then you can recollect. But the point here is, you can also recollect. Suppose I see Dr. Srinath now in the screen. So after say a few years, I see somewhere in some other conference. So assume that some 5-10 years have passed on. Okay? So then I may recollect. Oh, it is that person whom I see. Okay? But this is also recollection. But this recollection is based on one more perception. So that will be called as pratyabhijna. It is not smriti. So that is pratyabhijna, or maybe you can call it recollection. This you call it remembrance. I don't know what the exact English terminology is, but so the smriti is, it has to be generated purely out of samskara, so vasanas which are already there. So that person should not be seen in front of you. Okay, so that you call as smriti. Now here he says smrtva petasya jantoho. Smrtva means, so having remembered. So what does he remember now? Hi, how can I talk to this fellow? He's already dead. So recalling that this person is already dead, smrtva petasya jantoho nidhanam. Nidhanam is maranam. So even in the swapna itself, so there is another thought. After all, this person was dead. How can I? So then he says, asuyutim nirikshye. That's okay, doesn't matter. Now I am seeing him alive. Okay, asuyutim nirikshya bhashate tena sakam. So he keeps conversing with him. Conversing with whom? Conversing with the person who is dead. Okay, so that is what he is trying to say. Bhashate tena sakam. He keeps talking with him. So all this happens in swapna. Satyevam. So this being the case. So this being the case, Satyevam bhati bhuyol pakasamayavashat satyata va mrishatvam. Satyata and mrishatvam. See, bhuyolpaka samayavashat. So bhuyolpaka samayavashat. So this one can sort of correlate, saying that, see, as Dr. Srinath was saying, so there are certain phenomena, okay, so which triggers some part of memory, and maybe again and again something keeps happening, and that registers so well in Jagrata Avastha. Whereas these are quite fleeting in the Swapna Avastha. So based on that, you call it Mrisha and you call it Satya. So there is a fundamental philosophy in this, so that we need to understand. So this is what the verse says. The verse says, what made you dismiss? Suppose you talk to him, so once again you come back, so in the Jagrata Avastha. So then, so you will not consider that person to be living. Okay. So here he is saying, so because of short-lived experiences, but whether it is short-lived or long-lived, so it is, suppose it is recurring memory, whatever it is, so recurring dreams, so it can be repeatedly happening, whatever it is. The reason for you to dismiss could be because it is short-lived and long-lived. This is one way to understand. Alpaka samayavashat, bhuyaha samayavashat. The other way to understand this is, suppose you have a certain dream, so which requires, so traveling for a long period, and that does not happen. So then alpaka samayavashat, based on that, I can say this is wrong and therefore mrisha. Okay. So anuchita kalavashat, you can call it mrisha. And here it is for a long time, I just keep seeing. Okay. So there is nothing which prohibits me. Okay. So therefore I associate satyatvam to this. So there are two ways in which you can understand. But what is the distinction between what has been communicated in the previous verse and what is being communicated here? So this is something which we need to understand from the overall philosophy. So what was stated in the previous verse is, so he was trying to say that whether the events are perceived by you in Swapna or events are perceived by you on Jagrata Avastha, both are taken to be mithya. Mithyatva siddhau. And he says ubhayatha. Ubhayatha. How does the word get formed? You know? Ubhayatha means by both ways, by both means. So there is a thal pratyaya. Okay, prakara vachane thal, ubhaya prakarena. In fact, yatha tatha. So all that is sarvatha, sarvaihi prakaraihi. So that is how this comes. Anyway, ubhayatha. Ubhayatha means by both ways. So there itself, so I wanted to tell you that this basically happens based on certain inferential process that you are trying to invoke. In fact, Bhagavad Pada himself has given, normally we do not find Shankara Bhagavad Pada giving the whole Anumana. Okay? So in Mandukya Karika, the fourth Karika, he supplies all that is required for us to understand the Karika. So wherein he gives the whole 5-step Anumana. So Anumana basically has 5 steps. See? Pratigya, Hetu, Udaharana, Upanaya, Nigamanam. So it was very interesting to see Bhagavad Pada mentioning all the 5. Okay. So the Mandukya Karika, there is a Prakaranam. Second Prakaranam is called Vaithatya Prakaranam. In the Vaithatya Prakaranam, so it starts with Vaitatyam Sarvabhavanam Swapnahur Manishinaha Antasthanattu Bhavanam Samritatvena Hetunam. Sarvabhavanam means Sarvesham Padarthanam. This is what you have to understand. Kesham Padarthanam Ye Padarthaha Swapnakale Tvaya Drishtaha. Okay. Vaitatyam Sarvabhavanam Swapne Ahuhu Manishinaha. Okay. Wise people, they say that all that you see, I mean, even when you scream, so suddenly you scream, you think it to be real, right? Then you say, hey, it is all false. Somebody will tell you. So why are you worried about it? Okay. So this is something which is true of people who get into the other state also. That is why the psychologists are increasing nowadays. There is something called depression. You understand? For no reason he thought that this is what will happen. So you just get into this state. All your imagination. So then what is the duty of psychologists? Hey, don't think like that. You should always be optimistic. Why are you thinking negatively? This positive thinking and so on. So anyway, this Vaitatyam Sarvabhavanam Swapne Ahuhu Manishinaha Antasthanattu Bhavanam Samritatvena Hetuna. The reason that he supplies is because you see things in your own mind, where there is no space for all these events, or for all that you witness. You are not seeing it in the external space. Then the second reason is Adirghatvacha kalasya gatva dehan na pashyati pratibuddhascha vai sarvaha tasmin deshe na vidyate. So suppose you see somebody in Varanasi. Where was the time to go to Varanasi and come back? Not possible. Adirghatvacha kalasya gatva dehat na pashyati pratibuddhascha. So you come out of the dream state. Pratibuddhascha vai adirghatvacha kalasya gatva dehan na pashyati pratibuddhascha vai sarvam tasmin deshe na vidyate. Okay. Then the third thing is, so then there is a very interesting thing. Abhavascharatadinam shruyate nyaya purvakam Vaitathyam tena vi praptam. So then he invokes Shruti also. Okay, and then he gives this. But then the fourth thing is very interesting. Okay, so that is something which is very relevant here. See, I'll just tell you the fourth Karika in this Vaitathya Prakaranam is Antasthanat tu bhedanam. Antasthanat tu bhedanam. Antasthanat tu bhedanam tasmad jagarite smritam.
Tasmad jagarite smritam.
Tasmad jagarite smritam. Yatha tatra tatha swapne.
Yatha tatra tatha swapne.
यथा तत्र तथा स्वप्ने संवृतत्वेन भिद्यते संवृतत्वेन भिद्यते. So this karika is a little tricky to understand. Some are very much simpler. Therefore, Bhagavad Pada decided whatever is required, he will supply. I will just read the bhashya for you. He says, Jagradrishyanam bhavanam vaitathyamiti pratignya. So in Anumana Prakara, the first statement is thesis. See? So Rama is a very disciplined person. Why? So then you have to supply hetu. But this is your statement. Okay, this is called pratignya. What you want to prove, the thesis that you want to prove is stated. Okay, there are two aspects, paksha and sadhya. Anyway, there are two aspects here. So jagradrishyanam bhavanam vaitathyam. Vaitathyam is what you have to prove. Jagradrishyanam bhavanam means the padarthas that you see, okay, in the waking state also are vitathaha mithya bhutaha. This is pratignya. Why? The hetu, he says, drishyatvaditi hetu. Why are you saying? I am saying because they are seen. Because they are seen. Because they are seen, it has to be real. So here he is saying, so drishyatvat hetu. Then the example is swapna drishya bhavavat. So swapna drishya bhavavat iti drishtantaha udaharanam. You understand? Swapna drishya bhavavat means like the padarthas you saw in swapna. Okay. Now what happens? So swapna drishya bhava you have already proved. Okay. Swapna drishya bhavaha. Okay. Mithya bhutaha you already know. So therefore through this example, like this swapna drishya bhavavat, it is like this. Suppose I say, okay, parvataha vanniman dhumat. So then drishtanta will be mahanasavat. Okay, like kitchen, like the kitchen. Okay, so the fire in the mountain. Okay, so you can say even the fire in the mountain will be hot. Why? Because it is fire. Like what? Like the kitchen fire. So you can just say like this. So dhumavatvat. So is the hetu that is supplied generally. So that mountain should have fire. Why? Because it has smoke. Okay. So this supply here, drishtanta is swapna drishta bhavavat. So then he moves on further. Yatha tatra swapne drishyanam bhavanam vaitathyam tatha jagaritepi drishyatvam avishishtamiti hetu upanayaha. This is the fourth part. Upanayaha means, so you are bringing that. So from the unknown, so you try to present a certain known, and then through the known you make the unknown known. Okay, so through that correlation, this is what is upanayaha. You bring that here. So that is what he does. See, yatha tatra swapne drishyanam bhavanam vaitathyam. That was confirmed. Tatha jagaritepi. Why? The same hetu is available. Na drishyatvat. Okay. So drishyatvat. Sometimes this false positive comes. No? You test. So you got some result. But it need not necessarily be there. Anyway. So drisyavat, okay, hetu panayaha. Then finally he says, tasmad jagaritepi vaitathyam smritamiti nigamanam. Okay. So then there is a question. See, antasthana samvritatvena cha swapna drishyanam bhavanam jagradrishyebhyo bhedaha. This is what is called drishtanta vaishamyam. Okay. There is a drishtanta vaishamyam which is presented as a reason for calling a reason fallacious reason. Okay. So this is, so the reason hetu will be called, declared a fallacious reason for a variety of reasons. One is this drishtanta vaitamya. But then Acharya here says, See, drishyatvam asatyatvancha avishishtam upayatra. Okay, I will not get into those details now, but what I wanted to tell you was, in fact, I can take you through some levels of argument, so through this inference, but that requires some introduction, but so we will keep it now for the moment. The point here is, in the previous verse, so it was said that during Jagradavastha, all that you saw in Swapnavastha is invalid. So during Swapnavastha, so whatever that you see in Jagradavastha becomes invalid. That much is same here in this also. But what was concluded there is, so just because there is invalidity in different avasthas, and this invalidity was experienced by the same person, you declare both of them to be mithya. Okay? So, itham mithyatva siddhau. So, the question that this person can ask now is, so this invalidity is only in the other avastha, but not in the same avastha. Okay? So, here in the same avastha, so they are as real to me as it is there in that avastha. Okay? So, that is what gives me these various experiences. So, there is one difference that you can see there, but the argument was based on drishyatvat, as he is saying. So, that can be logically argued out. Okay? So, whether there is a drishtanta vaishana or drishtanta vaishana is not there. Okay? But through this hetu, drishyatvat is basically common. Okay? So, through that one can defend. So, keeping that in mind, so Acharya says, itham mithyatva siddhau. So, you can always find some difference. So, you can say, this is arthakriyakari. If you say arthakriyakari, arthakriya means I can do something with the padartha that I have in Jagradavastha. Okay? So, I have money in Jagradavastha, I can go and purchase something. So, in Swapna will you have me? In Swapna money will be there. So, that can be arthakriyakari. There is no problem. Okay? So, this arthakriyakaritvam cannot be supplied. But then this drishyatvat anyway is something which is an interesting hetu through which it has been argued in the previous thing. Sajjate tatra mudhaha. So, that is, the example there is slightly different from the example that has been presented in this verse. Here he has purely considered all that happens in the Swapnavastha. So, in the Swapnavastha itself, you recollect what is true in the Jagradavastha, but you also sort of dismiss away. Okay? That cannot be true. So, the dismissal can happen not necessarily in some other avastha, but so within this itself it can happen. So, that is the kind of distinction that you see. But then the other reason that he supplies here is Satyehevam Bhuyol Pakasamayavashat. So, Bhuyol Pakasamayavashat. In fact, so this is somewhat related to the kind of question that he was raising. So, Bhoga Papu. So, Bhoga Papu, towards the end of the class, he was raising this question. It is okay, so that Swapnavastha can also create the events, whatever happened. In fact, that Pratiksha was also asking, so what if I see something, okay, and it happens in the reality, okay, so how can I say it is mithya? Okay. So the thing is, so just because one event was true, it need not necessarily be true. That also is again, so falling into the same domain. It just happened by Deva Vashat, you had some good dream and it turned out to be true. It is all basically happening due to karma vashat. So that you have to understand. Okay, that apart, the thing here is, these events are short-lived and therefore they do not leave a deep impression in the mind. So this seems to be what is being conveyed here. Whereas, so during Jagradavastha, so this seems to be long-lived and therefore they remain with you and they seem to be true to you. So this is what. So this satyatvam here, satyatvamiti vyavaharati. So satyatvam bhati, but it does not really mean that it is satya in that sense of trikala abadhya. So this trikala abadhyatvam, so is not there. So that is what one has to understand through these words, mrishatvam. This mrishatvam means anityatvam. This satyatvam should not be taken as trikala abadhya nityam, but it seems to be. Why is it that you give more validity to this than to that? Okay, so that is what is being explained in this verse. Okay, we'll read this and close the class. Jivantam jagradih svajanamat amritam swapnakale nirishya nirvedam yatyakasmat mritam amritamam vikshya harsham prayati smritva petasya jantoho nidhanam suyutim bhashate tena sakam satyevam bhati bhuyol pakasamayavashat satyatava mrishatvam. So there is some other background which I want to give you as to overall why this whole discussion is brought out. So there are some beautiful passages which have been composed by Bhamati and so on. I wanted to basically try to bring that. Maybe I will do it perhaps in the next class. It's a very wonderful argument. So as to why the whole discussion comes about. Why do you want to say all this is mithya? So all that we need to understand. So maybe I will take up in the next class. Om Sarve Vishakhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om